The WNBA came out and released this. Upon post-game review, the Phoenix Mercury Alyssa Thomas has received a flagrant 2 penalty and a 1-game suspension for recklessly making contact with her fist to the throat of Indiana Fever guard Caitlin Clark. It was announced today by WNBA. The incident for which Thomas, committed a non-basketball act occurred with 6:52 remaining. Per WNBA rule, the league has the option following review of any game to reclassify a flagrant foul or to classify as flagrant any foul not called such during the game, may impose a fine/suspension. She's going to obviously be suspended for their next game.
Something truly unimaginable has occurred. For years, the WNBA has operated under an unwritten set of rules where harsh physical play by veterans against rookies was mostly ignored, seen as a routine part of earning your spot. But today, that outdated way of doing things has collided with the realities of the modern game. After a full day of massive, unprecedented backlash from angry fans, major media voices, and huge corporate sponsors, the WNBA front office has finally stepped in. In a historic and carefully analyzed statement, the league announced that Phoenix Mercury veteran Alyssa Thomas has been given a flagrant 2 penalty and a 1-game suspension for dangerously striking Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark in the throat with her fist.
Andy Carter situation. I think we all know that they bottled that situation, as in, like, it was clearly suspension worthy, and it was called as a common foul in the day, and they brought it up to a flagrant 1. I think the 1-game suspension is... I think the 1-game suspension, I stand by this, is way less than what it should be, but it's a start.
This is more than just a typical disciplinary notice. It is a major, league-altering admission from the highest levels of the organization. By officially labeling this incident as a non-basketball play and upgrading it to a serious flagrant 2, the league office in New York is finally pulling back the veil to send a clear, undeniable message. They are confirming what millions of viewers witnessed on national television. This was not a standard competitive play. It was an intentional act of aggression that crossed the line. This suspension shifts the entire conversation regarding the league's commitment to protecting its most valuable, popular player. Yet, as the news of the suspension reaches every major sports network, a fierce and divided debate has instantly erupted among the fans. While many are glad the league finally acted, a large, vocal group of basketball fans is arguing that a single-game suspension is a surprisingly minor penalty for an act that could easily have caused a season-ending, career-altering injury. Today, we are examining the significance of this historic suspension, why the timing of the league's move hints at corporate anxiety, and why the Indiana Fever coaching staff is still receiving intense criticism, even after the league's intervention. If you want the most direct, honest breakdown of the biggest story in basketball, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Let's dive straight into the fallout.
The social media post was the Wanna Bonner, who was on the ground herself. It was tone deaf. They deleted the post. It is what it is. Going for a loose ball is a flagrant 2. I mean, don't want a piece of this. Like, it was tone deaf. It was, you know it's bad when even Cindy Brunson called it tone deaf. The #1 Caitlin Clark hater out there called it tone deaf. It's the bare minimum punishment. The league never wants to send any message. I'm going to be real.
To grasp the intense corporate pressure that pushed the WNBA to finally penalize Alyssa Thomas, we need to look back at the league's criticized history regarding Caitlin Clark. When you examine the disciplinary actions from this season, a concerning pattern becomes clear. Earlier this year, the sports world was outraged when Chennedy Carter delivered a blatant, unprovoked cheap shot to Clark. The league mishandled that hostile situation from the start, initially calling it a common foul before facing such a wave of negative public pressure that they were forced to change the call later. The front office severely misjudged the public response and took a major hit to their reputation. Fast forward to the Alyssa Thomas incident, and the league simply could not afford to get it wrong again. The optics of letting another veteran target the same superstar without immediate, harsh consequences would have been devastating for their rapidly growing corporate partnerships. The WNBA was essentially forced into a corner by its own actions. They had to admit that this level of aggressive, veteran-led physicality is no longer just tough basketball. It is a major problem. But is a 1-game suspension actually enough to stop this kind of targeted behavior in the future? Many analysts are quick to point out that in the NBA, a direct, intentional punch to the throat of an opponent, whether they are in the air or on the ground, would easily lead to a much stricter multi-game suspension, potentially reaching 5 or 7 games depending on the player's history. By only giving a one-game ban to a player known for extreme physicality, is the WNBA quietly signaling that while they are forced to act by the media, they still essentially tolerate this culture of intimidation?
3 games minimum. 3 games minimum. Like, we've seen this image, and like, I'm not gonna lie, like I'm not gonna say it, but we know what this looks like, and we know that if this was Caitlyn or any other player, or if this was Caitlyn on Alyssa Thomas and this picture was taken, Caitlyn wouldn't be playing for the rest of the season.
The sheer intensity of the public backlash forced the league's hand, but the corporate panic was also fueled by the unprofessional behavior of the Phoenix Mercury organization themselves. In the chaotic moments following the injury, while Caitlin Clark was receiving medical treatment in the locker room, the Mercury's official social media team chose to post a tone-deaf, provocative image. The post, which seemed to make light of the physical contact and mocked the injured player on the ground, went viral for all the wrong reasons. The genuine disgust from the global sports community was so overwhelming that even the most vocal critics of Caitlin Clark were forced to call the post classless. The Mercury were quickly forced to delete the tweet, but the damage was already done. When a professional franchise's marketing department decides to mock a generational talent who just took a dangerous cheap shot, it forces the league leadership to step in and restore professional standards. The WNBA is currently trying to market itself as a premier, respectable professional sports league capable of securing billion-dollar television deals. They simply cannot allow individual teams to act like unprofessional, amateur operations that celebrate injuries to opposing stars. The suspension of Alyssa Thomas was not just about the on-court incident. It was a desperate, coordinated move by the league office to regain control of a toxic situation that was spinning out of control. They needed to show that this level of unprofessionalism, both on the floor and on social media, threatens the long-term success of the entire league.
And Alyssa Thomas loses a game as well. Like, I'm being real, this happened, and then 30 seconds later was the landing space foul, and you're like, what the fuck is going on here? This team's just going after Caitlyn. Like, Ayai after the major flail as well. After that, like, it's just a bad situation, but yeah, finally, Alyssa Thomas freaking suspended. I'll see you guys.
As the dust.
However, perhaps the most debated and uncomfortable part of this suspension involves an undeniable double standard that millions of fans are pointing out on social media. We have to be honest when looking at the reality of this situation. Look closely at the video of the altercation. If the roles were reversed, if a famous rookie named Caitlin Clark were caught on camera pressing her fist and body weight into the throat of a defenseless veteran like Alyssa Thomas, what would the reaction be across the league? The truth is that the mainstream sports media would immediately demand a permanent ban from the sport. We would be talking about a massive, season-long suspension, huge fines, and the destruction of her professional reputation. This obvious hypocrisy regarding how different players are scrutinized and punished by officials is causing a rift in the fan base. Fans are tuning in to see great basketball, not to watch an uneven, biased application of the rules where certain veterans operate with physical freedom while others are penalized for minor contact. While the one-game suspension of Alyssa Thomas is a massive step in the right direction, it highlights how skewed the system of justice has become. The WNBA can no longer assume that the casual audience doesn't understand the nuances of the game. The millions of new fans have a high basketball IQ, and they are demanding that the same standard of safety and conduct be applied to every player, regardless of their status or locker room ties. It is a shame they couldn't act on the day, because if you look at the monitor, it was clearly a flagrant 2. Clearly, the refs weren't able to get to the monitor, and the fact that the coach, even on an iPad, if it were Becky Hammon or Cheryl Reeve, they would have run onto the floor, showing a choke emoji to say, "She tried to choke my player." You can bet that if this happened to Aya Wilson or Olivia Miles, their coaches would be ejected. This intervention also exposes the concerning lack of proactive leadership from the Indiana Fever sideline. The frustrating reality for fans is that the league office had to step in 24 hours later because the officiating crew, and more importantly, the coaching staff, failed to address the escalation in real time. When that non-basketball contact happened, there was no immediate pause in the game. The referees failed to independently review the incident for a hostile act. But the most glaring failure of the evening rests on the shoulders of head coach Stephanie White. If you look at how elite, championship-winning coaches in other leagues operate, a serious uncalled hit to their star player leads to an immediate, fiery response on the sidelines. If this happened to a superstar like Aya Wilson or Kelsey Plum, you know that legendary coach Becky Hammon would be sprinting onto the court, demanding a review, pointing at the replay screens, and accepting a technical foul to defend her player. But the response from the Indiana bench was incredibly passive. The lack of a visible, aggressive defense of Caitlin Clark during the heat of the moment has left fans feeling alienated and suspicious of the team culture. You cannot expect the league office to be the sole protector of your star player if you, as the head coach, refuse to take a stand during the game. The later press conference comments are meaningless when the tape shows a lack of immediate urgency. Like, what if Caitlin loses a game?
Have done something on the day, because again, if you go to the monitor, it's clearly a flagrant 2. Clearly, the refs just weren't even able to get to the monitor, and the fact the coach, even on an iPad, if it was Becky Hammon, I think I saw it as a no-cast, it was Becky Hammon or Cheryl Reeve, they would have ran, they saw it on the iPad, they would have ran onto the floor like freaking putting a choke emoji saying she tried to choke my player. Like, you better believe if this happened to Aja Wilson or Olivia Miles, their coaches are getting tossed.
The basketball world is now holding its breath, waiting to see the true physical fallout of this chaotic game. The unfortunate reality is that just 30 seconds after the Alyssa Thomas throat shot, Caitlin Clark's landing space was compromised, leading directly to the back injury that forced her out of the contest. The league can issue retroactive suspensions and write press releases, but they cannot magically heal an injured superstar. The Indiana Fever are lucky to be entering an 8-day break, giving a critical window for Clark to recover her back. But major questions remain. Has the WNBA finally learned a permanent, expensive lesson about the need to protect its generational stars? Or is this one-game suspension just a calculated corporate bandage designed to quiet the outrage of networks and new fans? The future of the league's momentum is balancing on a thin line. The fans want transparency, the corporate sponsors want safety, and the sports world is watching closely. What do you honestly think about the league's decision? Is a one-game suspension for a punch to the throat a fair punishment, or is it a weak slap on the wrist? And do you believe that Stephanie White failed to earn the respect of her locker room by remaining passive on the sidelines? I want you to share your most analytical thoughts in the comments section below, because I am reading every single one of them. Do not forget to smash that like button. Subscribe to WNBA Pro for the best, unfiltered coverage anywhere on YouTube, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a major update. Until next time, keep your eyes on the court, and stay tuned for the fallout.